how to remain optimistic when your business seems at a standstill. So stay with me here. I think this is going to be really good. So first things first. Like I said, if I were addressing this person, or if I were addressing one of you, or if one of you is feeling this way tonight, like I said, even though I have no idea what you have or have not tried, let's make sure that, number one, that you are not the one who is standing still in your business ever. And now that also, I feel like that's a really strong statement that I just made, because if you guys are doing your organizing business just as like a side thing, or it's a side hustle, and you have a stable job and you got other things going on, but you just kind of want to like get some clients as they come up, then I'm not going to like be all over you and saying, oh, you're not doing enough, you're not pushing hard enough. Like, if you just want to take the low-hanging fruit that comes to you, I think that's totally fine. And I think that that's one of the beauties of like having this as a side business, is that you can do that in addition to whatever else you're doing right now. So let's make sure that you're not at a standstill. Now, I feel like and I really like have meditated on this, right? Like, I feel like if some other like business coaches were answering this question, like, oh, how to remain optimistic when your business is at a standstill? Well, you just need to double down and work harder, and like I was saying, like, market your tail off. Like, well, you need to, stop waiting and just push. But that's not actually what Gloria asked. It's not what she asked. And so I like really wanted to like address this topic on like multiple layers, because let's talk about this thing. First of all, if you do feel like maybe you're the one who's not putting enough into it, and I think only people can answer that honestly based on where they are and what they want. Like, what is your why for doing this? And I think having a big why is important, whether or not you are just doing this as a side hustle, or you're like, I really want to like push really hard on this and make this my full-time thing, or take what the success I've already had and grow my team and build my business big. Like, I think you have to have a why, or else you lose interest in it. But addressing the part about if you feel like that maybe you're the one who is at a standstill, because that could be part of the problem. And I think that you have to be honest with yourself about that. I'm not going to talk about this super in depth, because we have actually discussed a lot of ways to market your business and put yourself out there. So 3 videos I would recommend you going back to if this is something that like maybe you just need some fresh ideas for like what to do. So I'm gonna push this out there. The first one is the video that I mentioned from last week, which was the title of it on our YouTube channel is How to Sell a Service That No One has ever heard about before. Emphasis on, just because no one has heard about it doesn't mean there aren't other people out there who need it and want it and are willing to talk about it. And along with that, inside that video, we're referring to a blog post on my blog about reasons why people are hiring professional organizers. Now, that could be motivating in and of itself, because maybe you need, as part of your optimism, you need to be constantly reminded of reasons why people would hire you. So I think that would be a good video to go back to if you have not watched that and taken notes on that. The second video that I would say is crucial if you need to push harder is you need to go back to the video called 25 Ways to Market Your Business. I think that is one of our most popular ones that gets referenced a lot, so I think that's really important. And then Kathleen says, a favorite quote of mine is, if you do nothing, you get nothing. I frequently say it to myself in regards to my health and exercise. Okay, so yes, that is absolutely, that actually ties into something I was going to say too, is thinking about playing the long game, right? Like thinking about, you can't do push-ups like 4 times and expect like this overnight success in terms of like your physical fitness or your health or whatever. And being consistent with your business is very much the same thing. And so when you talk about staying optimistic, I think what you really mean is keeping the faith that your daily consistency in showing up, even when it feels like there's not a lot of people engaging with you, like on your website or on your Facebook page, that is going to pay off in the long run. I really strongly believe that. Even for example, just in my own like more recent experience, like I was doing these Facebook Lives when there was nobody listening to me. Like I was still like, oh, I'm doing this every Tuesday at 9 o'clock, and that just would happen. Okay. And then, other organizers that I've seen in this group and in the masterclass, like they just moved to a new area. It felt really overwhelming because they don't even know people. They can't even like network with like their friends in the area to start talking to. Like they're in an entirely brand new space. But instead of, losing optimism or not doing the work of it, I think just like daily posting like on your social media, even when it feels like, you know, you're talking to nobody, is really valuable long term, because you know why? It's almost like you're building up like a body of work, or like an archive like on your Facebook page of like past, you know, thoughts or ideas or experiences or little before and afters that you've done in your own home, even, that you can share, so that when people in the future are coming and checking you out and doing their homework, that there's not just nothing there, you know, that you're actually building up like your brand while you're waiting. But I don't really think that I think that's like really a productive thing to be doing while you're waiting, because you're planting the seeds for like your future business. I hope that makes sense. This is really like where I'm going with this whole, this is the third level of this question that I've been thinking about answering now. Consistency is key, 100% makes sense. Okay. So when I think about staying optimistic, I think about two things. One thing that I think about is like every time I have been overwhelmed, and I don't know, again, you guys, I'm not going to tell my whole story in this particular live chat. I think probably a lot of you guys have heard pieces of it, or you can go back on YouTube to some of my earlier videos that talk about, you know, doing it as a side hustle. I talk about, I started doing it full time for 10 months, then I did it as a side hustle. Like I had very different reasons for like why I made those choices at that time. But especially when, you know, I decided to change and did it as a side hustle on nights and weekends, you know, I definitely, not that I really felt like a lack of optimism about business being slow, but I felt a lack of optimism in general about just like having two jobs and like keeping up the energy for both of them. And the one thing that kept me optimistic about it, or kept me wanting to go about it, is I'm like, how can I let go of this thing that I know how to make money doing? And that it's really like I had created for myself like this ideal work environment where I can go into, maybe I'm not working from my home, but I can go into somebody else's home. I'm like in like a very like, you know, mostly calm environment. I mean, they have lots of stuff, but like that part didn't bother me. Just working one-on-one with a person, you know, like I guess I would think about what is the alternative? Like what would I rather have as a side job if I, you know, was going to take on a second job on the weekends? Like would I have to work, you know, retail, work in a restaurant, like work something like crazy hours that like I could do every other weekend because, you know, of my kids' schedule, you know, working super late nights, you know, bartending, that didn't appeal to me. So I guess like the optimism of it is like, wow, I figured out a way that I can make really good money doing something that is really helping people. And it's like legit, like we're, you know, like your clients will say like, oh, this is better than therapy. And it's much more productive and it's cheaper, you know. It's like you're actually like doing good in the world. Like you're not just, and I completely believe in therapy too, but what I mean is it's when people say like you're cheaper than therapy and it feels better, it's because you're like literally going in and like getting stuff done. Like you're removing their crap out of their life, like organizing whatever. So like that to me is very motivating, is like even when I lose a little optimism about how much I have to do or how overwhelming it is to manage, like, okay, I got a full-time job, I got my kids, I got this side business or whatever. It's like, how can I stop doing something now that people want to pay me money for and that I'm making really good money for doing, like I'm really good at it. It's kind of like the success breeds success thing. Again, I know that's not exactly the question that you asked, Gloria. So the thing that I want to go back to that's like the number one thing that would make me keep my optimism or keep my faith if I were in a situation where I was still just trying to get things started, which I know a lot of you are, and trying to get things off the ground and get your first couple of clients, and you're feeling like you're losing optimism because you feel like business is at a standstill, is that you actually have no idea how far-reaching, you know, the little things that you do in your business will be, because you don't know when somebody who has been procrastinating on something for years and years and years is going to finally pull the trigger and need to hire you. So I guess like just knowing that there are people out there who are going to need this and that they are going to choose somebody, and why shouldn't it be you? It's like I would like keep putting, like I would really want to keep making sure that I'm talking about it, you know, with the people that I come in contact with every single day in a very natural way. Make sure that I'm, you know, staying on point with my social media marketing. By the way, I never did that when I started my business, because I was like so I was so overwhelmed with the things that I had to do that I was just like, well, it needs to be perfect or I can't do it at all. So I would like, you know, do a Facebook post and then delete it because, you know, I was neurotic and perfectionistic, and I don't want you guys to be like that. So, what I was talking about, people who procrastinate, but then all of the sudden they see you, they meet you, they see you online, they see your website, and they're like, they say something like, I feel like this was a sign. Because they've been procrastinating on this for so long, or like, you know, maybe they even know what they knew about professional organizing, but they didn't feel like it was like the right place, right time. And all of a sudden, they come across your website and you have like this really calming, like non-judgmental vibe about you, and you're available and you're easy to work with. Like, it's just going to be like, that's the right place at the right time for that person. So I think that like that is the thing that would keep me optimistic, is knowing that people, you know, when they need you, they need you. When a death happens, all of a sudden they need you. You know, like, it might seem like things have been really quiet, like, you know, from your point of view, like you're sitting at your computer or you're waiting for your phone to ring, but to lose optimism and to stop doing the things that you need to do to like keep planting seeds for the future would be a mistake at this point, because, you know, when you're really just getting things started, you kind of do need to let that snowball kind of build up and, like, you know, get people talking about you, so that things can build from there. The last thing I want to tell y'all, do you ever get like this, like, this makes me happy. Yeah, now y'all about to find out how weird I am. When you drive through a neighborhood, do you ever just look at, you know, you're driving by and you're like, house, 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 and you're like, there must be hundreds of these houses in this one neighborhood, and this is one neighborhood inside my city of hundreds of neighborhoods, and you're like, every single one of these houses is full of stuff. And when I think about that, I think, you know, it's just like people needing to eat every day. It's like everybody has stuff that they have to deal with. Now, you know, not everybody is at a place in time in their life where they're like, you know, I really want to, you know, get more healthier. I want to like work with like a nutrition coach. But that doesn't matter. Everybody has to eat every day. And at some point, everybody's going to have to come to terms with, right, like, how they're eating really does affect them, like their health and in the long term. Oh, this was so good because Kathleen said this. This was like personal training and exercise she was relating it to earlier on. So I think the same way when I pass by all these people, I'm like, oh my God, every person that I ever walk by has stuff, right? I mean, almost everybody. And so whether they do something with that stuff right now or 25 years from now, they're still going to have to deal with it at some point, or it's going to get dumped on somebody else to deal with, namely their kids. So this is that whole other part of the conversation I want to come back to. If you guys feel discouraged or not optimistic or any of those negative emotions, start doing some research about the demographics of baby boomers and their aging parents right now. Because baby boomers are just starting to get to retirement age, and they have money, right? They have to deal with like their parents who, you know, are at the end of their lives, and, you know, they may or may not have already gone through the process of helping their own parents downsize. So they can afford to have somebody come help them with that, okay? And then also they're the ones who are realizing, I mean, and we're talking about a huge demographic group that are reaching this age where they have more time on their hands, but they also have more money. And they're realizing that they do not want to burden their children with the same amount of crap that their parents did to them. Because, you know, think about like I'm going very stereotypical here, like your 80-year-old grandma who thinks that all this furniture and like antique stuff is going to be worth something to somebody, and then come to find out the market is saturated with this stuff. I mean, and so, like, you know, it's like, grandma, nobody wants your china cabinet, that kind of thing. So I'm not going to go too far into this in this, you know, free live chat, but this is something that I care a lot about, and this is one of the reasons why I see such a huge opportunity and why I think that this field is going to continue to grow. So that is all I'm going to say about that. I hope that makes you feel motivated. You don't have to be somebody who specializes in, you know, seniors or downsizing or any of that, but I think that is one of the reasons why professional organizing as a field is going to continue to become like a real thing that is much more well known, and that people, everyday people who have a lot of crap, will, you know, start to understand that it's something that they can outsource to somebody else, and that they're going to get so many positive benefits back to it that it's something worth paying for. Becky says, She's going to put that up on her bulletin board. Do not stop planting seeds for the future. Love it. Yes, I absolutely believe that. I tell people that in the masterclass, and I tell people that here. And Becky is one of my new MC girls, so she knows it is a process that is going to come back around to you. But you can't stop. Like, you can't stop even when you have clients and you're really busy. And I know that's really hard, but it's like you have to kind of have this consistency to keep your clients coming in for the long term. One says yes, and depression era parents keep everything. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. And who's gonna deal with all their stuff? Like, I mean, I guess they're gonna call like one of these 1-800 junk places and get them to haul it all away. But if they don't have kids who care enough to come help them, what other kinds of businesses are they going to call? Like, they want somebody who's going to come and like go through things methodically. They don't just want to, you know, back up a dump truck to their house. Like, this is their life possessions, you know. Margaret says, oh, and Margaret, this is such a good point. Margaret says, when my husband says there aren't enough people who would use this, I think just how few people it takes to have an ongoing business. I completely agree with that. And Margaret is talking, you know, specifically about living in a small town or a smaller area, which is kind of a whole nother topic for maybe a different night. But if you guys live, and I say this all the time, if you guys live in an area where there are other businesses like customized businesses like interior designers or personal trainers who will work with you one-on-one, then there is then also the market for this kind of business, because it's the same type of clientele who see the value and who are willing to pay for it. Gabrielle says, this information is invaluable. I love you and appreciate all your words of encouragement and all the nuggets you give so freely. You're welcome, girl.